Alright, so this latest episode of My Hero Academia, Season 5, Episode 11, the 99th episode in the series in general, to me felt very much like a holdover from the previous one. With Deku's One For All crisis seemingly being averted thanks to the assistance of Uraraka and Shinso, and his subsequent understanding of his new quirk, Black Whip, we would then find ourselves transitioning back to the match at hand. However, after that whole fiasco, Deku seemed to be avoiding the usage of his quirk. This didn't exactly last very long, but the concept of Deku going back to being quirkless in this battle was an interesting convention, and one I feel was brought up for the sake of emphasizing his development as a character. The fact that Deku was once quirkless is a secret, and so Uraraka wouldn't be aware of what this sort of convention would mean to Deku. But as for the rest of their team, we would have Eminem, Mineta, and Mina, who were doing their own thing, and honestly, Mina is my favorite girl in Class 1A, but really and truly she didn't do very much in this battle. Which isn't to say that she was useless. I mean, we've seen that in the case of Oyama, or regrettably even in the case of my boy Kirishima. She was pulling her weight for sure, she just wasn't doing anything so significant that we would have to talk about and discuss it. And at that, unlike all the other rounds that we have had prior, I feel like this final round, round 5, is the one where the second half is weaker than the first half. Usually the first is a bit of setup for what is going to be a crazy spectacular conclusion, but I feel like it's been reversed in this case simply because it is all about Deku. This is the Deku show. We got our main character back into the fray, and he has a new power all of a sudden. And for us to begin with the importance of that, we are left to disregard the later half. However, an interesting point of this battle would be in regards to Monoma. For a moment there, it seemed as though he was able to duplicate or replicate One For All. In actuality, it was a dud. He wasn't able to copy this quirk, but even still, Deku believed that he was able to and feared for his safety, as without proper preparations, his limbs would blow off for sure. And if I'm Monoma, after observing Deku in the sports festival, his quirk is the last one that I would copy, as he was just breaking himself apart in each and every one of his fights. Monoma's quirk is a very capable one. It is one that I think is pretty amazing. It kind of reminds me of Rogue from X-Men. But it is one that I feel is most fruitful under intense study. You have to know exactly the sort of quirk that you are copying. You don't want to just take random quirks willy-nilly because you don't know what led to that point. You don't know how to properly regulate or use these powers. The toughest of foes are going to be ones who have cultivated their quirks to their utmost extremes. And so one cannot reasonably expect to reach that same threshold of capability in a mere instant. It's like fighting fire with fire when you have a candlestick against a raging inferno. The best possible outcome I could see for a person and quirk like this would be for Monoma to get a hero agency of his own with a bunch of sidekicks who have quirks that he is familiar with and able to properly utilize on the fly and mix and match. Now, in regards to the other team, Class 1A's team, I have to emphasize Uraraka. She is the MVP of this battle. Forget Deku, I know he got Black Whip in this fight, but here it is Uraraka, the Uraraka show. She is just taking people down like nobody's business. She captured Monoma and handled the business in that regard. She came to Deku's rescue and helped deal with Black Whip. She came to Mina and Mineta's aid and helped deal with their adversaries. And the decision to do so was a calculated one in which she considered the sentiments of Deku prior. That she doesn't have to worry about him and should instead go to the others. And not to mention, by way of her float quirk, Deku was able to make it to Shinso and have their battle there. Now, Shinso's development with the capture tape was an arduous one. It is a difficult support item to use, and reasonably speaking, I don't imagine how this possibly works. But fair enough, in seeing where he began with this capture tape as opposed to where he is now, he has definitely improved quite substantially. However, on the other hand, Deku has certainly improved quite a lot and has actual in-the-field experience, and so there was no comparison. Shinso has only just begun. He is trying to get into the hero course. Deku has been done with that. He has fought villains, actual villains who have the capacity to turn society itself on its head and has emerged victorious. And so we would actually see him use Black Whip in a proper way. And at first this seemed to be a pretty ridiculous 180 from the previous episode in regards to his capability with this quirk. However, it would have bodily ramifications on him. And listen, with all this madness, Shinso said, let me get out of here. I can't handle this guy by myself. Let me retreat. And Deku was not letting him go. Oh my goodness, it was dazzling the way that he was just catching up. His speed is ridiculous at this point. Now mind you, even after being captured, Monoma did manage to get off a final gambit of his on DEKU, but it was not enough as DEKU is very resilient at this point and has been through a whole lot, as we have said. If this was some riffraff fodder they were up against, if this was any lesser character, I'm sure that would have been a major play, but not against the main character. He has plot armor, he has multiple quirks now, it's just too much to face off against. And after the fact, Shinso would be pretty hard on himself in regards to his inability to take down DEKU and his lack of combat expertise, but again, he's against DEKU. If this was any other character, for the most part, he would have probably been able to emerge victorious or would have at the very least landed a sizable blow, but no, DEKU just got a secondary quirk. What are you gonna do? You have one quirk against a guy with two quirks who knows how your quirk works and you don't know how this new quirk works. It's a whole lot for you to deal with. I don't think anyone can downplay the difficulty in this situation. Now beyond this, everyone would of course question what the hell was going on with DEKU. What was that power? What was that? And obviously he wasn't going to detail what exactly happened, what truly happened, and the concept of one for all to them, but he was able to say just enough to have them be satisfied. And sprinkling a bit of truth into the mix certainly doesn't hurt. All in all, this was a pretty decent episode, nothing too crazy, nothing too extravagant, but it was a nice wrap up of what we had received prior. However, this does conclude our Class 1A versus Class 1B joint training battles, and so I am sure that is something that a lot of people can be happy about. Next up, we have the 100th episode of the series, and honestly, by way of that preview, I'm not sure it will live up to the weight of that milestone, but we'll see. If you enjoyed the episode and our subsequent coverage of it and would like to be here for even more, especially when it gets to be really crazy, be sure to subscribe to Plot Armor with notifications on. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at PlotArmorYT for all the latest and greatest anime and manga news, memes, and information, on top of giveaways, conversations, and everything in between. Because when it comes to bring you some of the best My Hero Academia content on the platform, Plot Armor has you covered. As always, I'm SliceBotaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.